Welcome to the Observe Day podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in. Today on the Observe Day podcast, we're diving into one of the most important and often overlooked conversations: men's mental health. As Movember reminds us each year, behind the spines and strengths, many men struggle silently with stress, depression, and emotional fatigue. Our guest today has dedicated over 4 decades to helping people break free from those mental barriers. Joining us is Judith Belmont, a psychotherapist and workplace wellness trainer, and the author of 11 self-help and mental health books, including our newest release, 110 CBT Tips and Tools. Judy has spent her career turning complex psychological concepts into simple, actionable steps that anyone can use to improve their emotional well-being. Through her work, she's taught countless individuals how to reframe negative thinking, develop self-compassion, and find balance in the chaos of everyday life. Welcome to the podcast, Judith.
Thank you for having me.
Movember, as they like to call it, they put the men and they remove the N and then they call it Movember, focus on men's mental and emotional health. From your 40 plus years in psychotherapy, what are some of the most common struggles men face that often go unnoticed or spoken about?
Well, I think a lot of men struggle with anxiety. There could be depression. There could be low self-esteem. There could be post-traumatic stress. There could be anger. There's no shortage of things that people struggle from, depending on what experiences they have had. But the good news is everybody can be empowered to change the way they react to things, even if some things aren't what they hoped it would be, because we can be victors instead of victims.
Yeah, victors instead of victims. Well, I'm curious, why do you think men in particular struggle with opening up about mental health? How can we begin to change that culture?
Well, I'm in the United States, so I have a feeling it's like this really probably in most places around the world.
Yeah,
Men are kind of supposed to be, kind of like have it more together. Women are more comfortable with talking about being anxious or being depressed. Men, it's a little bit more of a stigma for men. And also, men often don't have the support system like women do. A lot of women, they just validate one another and they share their feelings. But men, at least in the United States, a lot of men
yeah,
talk about sports games and things like that on the outside. They don't necessarily talk about what's inside.
yeah,
So that is a setup for people not feeling as good because they don't have as much support and they're afraid of seeming weak. But actually, the more you disclose and you're open, seeming, quote, weak is actually a sign of strength.
yeah. Well, your book, I'm not even sure I pronounced your book I pronounced it well when I was reading it out. Is it 110 or is it 110 CBT?
So the books that I've written are all about practical self-help things you can do to feel better about your life, to communicate better, to feel less angry, to handle stress better. And the latest book that I have is 110 CBT tips and tools. CBT stands for cognitive behavior therapy, which is the most widely adopted orientation for therapists doing counseling in the whole world, not just the United States, the whole world. And basically, it focuses on the quality of your thoughts determine the quality of your life. So for instance, if you're thinking, oh, I'm a failure, I'll never amount to anything, you're going to be depressed, you're going to be anxious, you're going to have low self-esteem. But if you think, I've had a lot of setbacks, but I have learned things and I am very encouraged about using what I've learned in the future, you're going to feel much better and more empowered. So a lot of times what we say to ourselves, our self-talk, determines how we feel. So my book is geared towards challenging distorted, irrational beliefs and to find ways to make unhealthy thoughts healthier so we feel better.
Yeah, so 110 CBT tips. Okay, for those who might wonder what CBT is, it's cognitive I can't even pronounce behavioral therapy. Help me out.
Cognitive therapy.
uh,
Basically, it is focusing on changing irrational thoughts to
yeah,
make you feel better, and then you can act better because you're thinking more clearly and you're feeling better.
yeah. So essentially, we're taking control of our thoughts, so we can take control of our lives.
And recognize when our thoughts are irrational and learn how to, it's called restructure. So we change the way we think. I'll give you an example. If you say that your family member, "Oh, my family member makes me so mad,"
Yeah,
that's actually irrational because you're being a victim. You're saying they're causing me to feel, to be mad.
yeah.
We're not talking about abuse here. We're
No,
talking
yeah,
about
no,
abusive
yeah,
situation.
yeah,
No one can really make you feel bad. You feel bad in response to what they say. We
yeah,
can be very mad. We can be a little mad. We can be sad. That's up to us between our ears.
yeah,
And so that example, instead of he makes me so mad, I am mad when he says things like that, or I am mad when he seems disrespectful to me. So one is more specific and one's all or nothing thinking. When people think in all or nothing ways, I'll never get it together. He was the only one for me. I'll never love again. And I've heard that from many people in my counseling practice. You're going to feel immobilized. But if you say, up until now, I haven't found a great connection with someone to love, then there's hope that it could be different. So it's all in changing the way that we talk to ourselves.
well, well, what are some of the most common thought distortions? I like that phrase. You see that lead to men feeling trapped or inadequate.
Well, I think in terms of anger,
Okay.
that they shouldn't be like that. Now, again, we're not talking about criminal behavior. Of course, you
Okay.
shouldn't kill anybody and
Yeah.
whatever. They shouldn't have said that to me. Well, shoulding on someone else is a cognitive distortion. It is irrational to expect people to be more like you think they should be. Instead of, I don't like what he just said or she just said, and I'm
Yeah.
going to let them know I'm not comfortable. So one, you're like not angry, you're empowered, and the other one, not. That would be an example.
Yeah.
Or a lot of times, men and women, but I think probably more men, feel like I'm a failure if you hadn't achieved the goal that you see other people achieving by your age or people in your family or friends or whatever. And I should be further along in my life right now. That's again shoulding rather than I'm a little disappointed that I haven't grown and developed and made as much money as I would like by now, but I have learned things along the way and I'm going to try my hardest to keep on going. So, and it's thinking more temporary ways rather than all or nothing permanent ways.
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observe Day newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation. And one of the things you often talk about is self-limiting beliefs. Could you share a few examples of beliefs men might hold that sabotage their mental wellness?
Self-limiting, sure, there's a lot of them because
Okay.
we talk to ourselves in ways that we would never talk to anybody else. Like I might, oh, talking to themselves, you stupid idiot, you shouldn't have said that.
yeah.
So if you're berating yourself, you're not loving yourself. You're not being positive. So that's a self-limiting belief. Or, I failed. I failed in this relationship. I feel like a failure rather than things have not worked out. And hopefully I will be bruised, but wiser moving forward.
Yeah.
So when people have self-limiting beliefs that put themselves down and they talk to themselves like they wouldn't talk to their good friends, it's going to make them stuck because they're going to think in very fixed ways rather than have what's called a growth mindset, which is I haven't reached what I want to reach at this point in my life. And I am looking forward to making more positive steps to go towards my goal
Oh,
rather than I screwed up.
yeah.
So a lot of times people just think all or nothing ways.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes when we think, we should try to think out loud, because when we hear ourselves say the things that we think, we realize how crazy it sounds.
That's a great point. When I'm retired now from my therapy practice, but a
Okay.
lot of my clients would say things and they would say, oh, I'm so depressed, whether it's a man or a woman. I feel so anxious and unsettled. I said, what are some of the thoughts? That's the first thing that I asked them. What are some of the thoughts? And then I would write down what they said. And no wonder why they were depressing themselves. No wonder why they were so upset. No wonder why
Yeah.
they were so anxious. And so then I would read back those thoughts and I would say, okay, let's say, I'll never amount to anything. I'm just
Yeah.
giving you an example.
Yeah.
And because I have heard that from men and
Yeah.
women too, actually.
Yeah.
Uh, I would say, okay, I'll never amount to anything. Is that fact or fiction? Is that
Mm.
something you're just telling yourself or is it actual fact? And he would say, oh, no. I mean, I guess it's not. That's just the way I feel. And I say, no, it's the way you think. If you think that way, you're going to feel bad.
Yeah.
And so let's think of a different way of phrasing it. But it's not just about the words, it's the mindset. So then I would have my client think of different ways of looking at something. Well, I'm disappointed that this didn't work out. Okay, that's fine. But if you're disappointed versus immobilized and kicking yourself, you're going to feel not as immobilized and not as bad.
Thank you for that example. Uh, for men who are dealing with depression, burnout, what are some practical small steps they can take daily to begin improving their mental fitness?
Well, just like I said before, write down your thoughts. Like you said, saying them out loud.
Yeah.
The next step after that is to actually write them out or, speak to them in your phone and then play it and say, okay, is it true or false? Is it a story I'm telling myself or is it actual truth?
Mm.
And so that would be one example. And then you can imagine having that thought. Let's say, I'm a loser and you put it imagine it on a cloud
Yeah.
and so look at the thought rather than from the thought. You're saying, oh, there I go again, having the thought that I'm a loser rather
Yeah.
than I'm a loser. So one
Yeah.
is more objective. And then you imagine the clouds disappearing
Yeah.
because you get it outside of yourself. A lot of times we don't question the way we think, and that's called ants, like little crawly ants.
Yeah.
Automatic negative thoughts. A is for automatic, N is for negative, and T is for thoughts. A lot of times we have these automatic thoughts that we don't even realize we have until we write it down or we observe them. And then we try to be what I call a thought detective and say, okay, is that true or not? And where's the evidence that that's true? That's another thing you can do is where's the evidence that I'm a loser? Where's the evidence that I shouldn't have said that? Where's
Mm.
the evidence? Because a lot of times we make ourselves feel worse when we don't forgive ourselves for being human. We're all works in progress. So
Yeah.
I would say, particularly for guys, because women are more likely to seek forgiveness and say that they made a mistake.
Yeah.
And somehow for men, they're not supposed to make so many mistakes, and
Mm.
that's a hard thing to carry because we're all human and so forgiving yourself for not having it all together, it's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. and particularly men, at least in the United States, men aren't they're supposed to be a little tougher, not so vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, many men they feel they have to be strong, which of course
Mhm.
the importance is there for their families, and then they hide their emotions. How can loved ones, partners, friends, colleagues create safer space for men to open up before it's too late?
Well, I think that realizing that sometimes expressing that you need help is actually a strength. I can't tell you how many people I've seen, both men and women, but probably more men in this way,
Cool.
think that asking for help is weak. And actually, to be strong enough to ask for help and to let someone know that you're not doing okay,
Yeah.
and just talking about things with someone else. Men generally keep things to themselves because they don't want to seem too weak or expose their feelings. It's more acceptable for women to
Yeah.
talk about their feelings.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy because it's very isolating when you feel like you have to keep things in. So that's when people shut down and they push other people away rather than try to get them closer.
Oh, I guess we've talked about partners, colleagues, friends. Well, how can workplaces better support men's mental health, given your experience in wellness training?
Well, I think that workplaces can do a lot to support people asking for help, such as having what's in this country is called an employee assistance program. It's called the EAP, where
Oh,
there's a place they can refer for counseling, and that is you don't have to be crazy to go to counseling. You
yeah.
want to better yourself or you want to work out some issues. So that's one way. And another way is to have trainings in your workplace to how to communicate better. A lot of times men are encouraged to be more aggressive and be tough. And that's actually could be kind of rude, but women are often conditioned to be non assertive, kind of passive, let people kind of roll over them. And so learning good communication skills of how to be assertive, using I statements, stand up for yourself, but in a way that isn't rude to others. So
Oh,
trainings can be really good. Having EAP or like some sort of counseling things.
yeah.
That would be a couple of examples.
Well, thank you so much. I think the reason why there's so much stigma with mental health is that oftentimes it's when it has become chaotic and everything. That's when people start addressing it. When everything seems fine and okay, nobody really talks about, okay, how do I just improve and become better and make sure everything is fit, right? It's when you're losing their mind, and that's when they're like, oh yeah, I need mental health help, which ought not to be so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Good
yeah,
point.
yeah. After decades, right, over 40 years helping others heal, what's one lesson you've learned about mental strength that you wish more men or people? I know in this case we're talking about men would understand.
I think that self compassion and self forgiveness is really important because I would say a lot of the clients that I had beat themselves up for not knowing then what they knew now and wish they didn't get as angry with their kids and they wish they didn't screw up a relationship.
Yeah.
They have all these regrets and they hold on to it rather than learn from it and move on. They keep on kicking themselves. So I would say self-compassion and self-forgiveness is really key to being free to move forward a
Oh,
bit wiser.
self-forgiveness.
Yeah.
Oh, the strange thing is that oftentimes when compassion and forgiveness those words are thrown around, usually for other people, right? Nobody really talks about you need to forgive yourself, right? You need to be compassionate for yourself. But when it comes to being compassionate for other people, most of the times people feel like, oh yeah, they feel bad not being compassionate, right? They feel wicked and holding on to things when they don't forgive others, right? But when it comes to forgiving themselves, nah, it's a different game entirely. Nobody really thinks that kind of thing exists.
Right. I think that when you don't forgive yourself, you keep on beating yourself up for things that you can't change because
Yeah.
we can't change the clock. We can't go back. And sometimes things are so obvious that weren't obvious before.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can only move forward wiser. But a lot of people get stuck because they're stuck in define themselves by past relationships, past behaviors that they now regret. But, we can only be as healthy as we are at the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes people act not so nice and maybe use bad judgment because they were not as healthy then. And you can't wish that away. That can really just make you deeper instead of weaker.
Oh,
If you can get deeper because of the insight that you've gained, that's so much more important than being right all the time. And that won't weaken you if you work on forgiving yourself, even though you wish you didn't need to learn those lessons like you did.
oh, oh, thank you so much. Uh, one last question. If you could share one simple daily practice with our listeners this Movember to help them feel more emotionally balanced, what would it be?
Every day, think of 3 different things that you're grateful for, because so often we look at what's missing in our lives rather than what we're grateful for.
Yeah.
And to have an attitude of gratitude and realize that even if things don't work out, we still can work out ourselves.
Yeah.
We still can turn out okay, even when things don't turn out. Too many people have preconditions. They want to have enough money. They want to have a certain job. They want to make this, corporate ladder. They want to do whatever in order to be happy. You can really choose it pretty much now. Sometimes it's more difficult depending on what hardships we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Um, but attitude is really a big part of the journey.
Oh, oh, thank you so much for that advice. I think we often the thing is that the things we do not have is far bigger than the things we have, and so when we're always looking at the things we do not have, we'll always be seeing the things that we do not have, rather than looking at what do I have. Right? I have my health. I'm in a state where there's no war. I'm alive. Right? I can see color. So many people cannot even see color. I can see the face of my mom, right? And I can see the face of my spouse. These are certain things that people, the person they've married, they can't see the face because they're blind. And these are things that we just taking for granted, and they can only imagine what their face looks like. Yeah, being grateful for what we have is a balanced place to be. No strife, no. Yeah, you're calm, you're relaxed, humble. Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Judith.
Well,
Where
thank
can
you for
where can
having me, and
yeah, where can
thanks for
listeners
great questions.
Yeah, thank you. Where can listeners learn more about your books and also connect with you?
Um, you can look on belmontwellness.com. That's my last name, Belmont Wellness. And I have free handouts and even little excerpts from my book that you can download or you can view online. Or
Wow.
you can go to Amazon, where Amazon is, I guess, is pretty much everywhere now,
Yeah.
and go on my Amazon author page, Judith
Okay.
Belmont.
I'll put the links mentioned in the description. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Judith
Thank you very
Belmont.
much for having
It's
me.
been an absolute delight chatting with you. I feel much more wiser.
Thanks.
Kudos to you. Yeah, thank
Thank
you. That's it for today's episode of the Observe Day podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.